Welcome to our podcast on expanding your English vocabulary together.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in as we explore 5 foundational words today.
Today we'll cover the words role model, nag, nature, nurture, and on to help new viewers be aware of these vocabs in our podcast. Role model is a noun.
It refers to a person whose behavior is imitated by others, especially younger or less experienced individuals.
She became a role model for aspiring engineers after leading the bridge project.
He looked up to his older sister as a role model in academic success.
The teacher was a role model for kindness and fairness in class.
She named her grandmother her role model for community service.
Professional athletes often serve as role models for young fans.
He described his favorite author as a role model in perseverance.
The CEO strives to be a role model for ethical leadership.
She cited her coach as a role model for discipline and dedication.
Parents naturally become role models for their children's behavior.
He admired the scientist as a role model in curiosity and integrity.
Doctors can be role models for empathy in healthcare.
She found her mentor a role model in balancing work and life.
Actors often become unintended role models for fashion trends.
He thanked his high school principal as a role model for resilience.
Volunteer leaders act as role models for civic engagement.
She sees Malala as a global role model for education rights.
Athletes use their platform to be role models for healthy lifestyles.
He said scientists should be role models for evidence-based reasoning.
Teachers often serve as role models in shaping students' attitudes.
She described community elders as role models in cultural traditions.
His father was his first role model in work ethic.
She calls her dance instructor a role model in artistry.
CEOs can be role models for corporate social responsibility.
He considers nurses role models in compassionate care.
Inventors often become role models for innovation.
She credits her mentor as a role model in leadership.
Environmentalists act as role models in sustainable living.
He sees Beethoven as a role model in creative brilliance.
Charity founders often become role models for philanthropy.
She names Marie Curie as her scientific role model.
Firefighters are role models for bravery in emergencies.
He calls Nelson Mandela a role model for reconciliation.
Journalists can be role models in truthful reporting.
She sees her grandmother's resilience as a personal role model.
Police officers should be role models for upholding justice.
He praises local activists as role models for community change.
Librarians serve as role models for lifelong learning.
She names Ada Lovelace as a role model in computing.
Volunteer coaches act as role models in teamwork.
He concludes that true role models lead by example and inspire others.
Nag is both a verb and a noun.
As a verb, it means to persistently annoy or criticize. As a noun, a person who nags.
She tends to nag her team about meeting deadlines.
He felt like a broken record when his wife continued to nag.
Parents often nag children to clean their rooms.
He calls her the office nag for reminding everyone of protocols.
She didn't appreciate him nagging about lunch plans.
He admitted he can be a nag about proper expense reporting.
Doctors sometimes nag patients about healthy habits.
He referred to his colleague as a workplace nag over safety gear.
She started to nag him about his car's maintenance.
He joked that his mother was the original nag in his life.
Coaches nag players about perfecting their footwork.
He laments being labeled the office nag for reminding about codes.
She nagged her roommate about taking out the trash.
He joked that his partner is a nag about phone charging habits.
Teachers may nag students to focus on homework.
He felt like a nag after reminding the team twice.
She nagged her kids until they finally picked up their toys.
He admitted his friend can be a nag about punctuality.
She tried not to nag him about his diet.
He called himself a self-imposed nag for skipping workouts.
She nagged the designer until the logo was perfect.
He laughed at being called a nag by his sister.
She hates to nag, but the reports remain overdue.
He accepted being the project nag to keep everyone on track.
She nags her mentor about reviewing her draft.
He admits he's a nag when it comes to saving receipts.
She tried to stop nagging and switch to positive reminders.
He owns his reputation as the office nag for deadlines.
She sometimes regrets nagging about small details.
He joked, "I'm not a nag, I'm a gentle reminder."
She started using checklists to avoid nagging.
He embraced his role as team nag for quality control.
She admitted her parents were relentless nags about manners.
He realized being a nag often demotivates rather than helps.
She switched to encouraging instead of nagging.
He prides himself on being the helpful office nag.
She says a little nag can go a long way in projects.
He warns against constant nagging that causes resentment.
She learned to balance reminders without becoming a nag.
He concludes that constructive support outweighs being a nag.
Nature is a noun.
It refers to the inherent qualities of something or the phenomena of the physical world collectively.
She studied the nature of human motivation in her dissertation.
He preferred retreating into the nature of the mountains.
The nature of their work demands precision.
He marveled at the nature of the solar system's harmony.
They questioned the nature of the disease's spread.
She found solace in the nature of the nearby forest.
The nature of the contract required careful review.
He respected the nature of the legal profession.
She pondered the nature of consciousness in philosophy.
He documented changes in the local nature reserve.
The nature of jazz music fascinates ethnomusicologists.
He felt at peace observing the nature of the river flow.
They debated the nature of intelligence in AI research.
She loved the nature documentary for its vivid imagery.
The nature of democracy requires active participation.
He wrote about the nature of innovation in startups.
She questioned whether art imitates nature or vice versa.
He taught students about the nature of market economies.
The nature of the error suggested a hardware fault.
She admired the wild nature of the coastal cliffs.
They studied the nature of chemical bonds in class.
He found comfort in the unchanging nature of sunrise.
The nature of friendship evolves over time.
She quoted poets on the sublime nature of love.
The nature of memory remains a mystery to scientists.
He recorded the local nature sounds for relaxation tracks.
They researched the nature of early childhood learning.
She wrote an essay on the nature of moral dilemmas.
The nature of the challenge demands creativity.
He photographed the nature of the desert at dawn.
She debated the nature of truth in her literature class.
He analyzed the nature of social networks in his thesis.
The nature of competition drives global markets.
She organized a trip to study the nature reserve.
They discussed the nature of leadership in workshops.
He loved exploring the nature trails every weekend.
She wrote on the nature of human resilience.
He filmed a short on the nature of urban wildlife.
They mapped the nature of the geological formation.
That shows how nature covers essence and natural world.
Nurture is both a verb and a noun.
As a verb, it means to care for and encourage growth. As a noun, it refers to the process of upbringing and environment.
Parents must nurture their children's creativity from a young age.
She credited her success to the nurture she received at the academy.
Good teachers nurture critical thinking in students.
He believed nurture shapes more than innate talent.
Gardeners nurture seedlings until they flourish.
She studied the role of nurture in personality development.
Coaches nurture athletes' potential through training.
He argued that nurture can overcome early disadvantages.
Mentors nurture mints in their career paths.
She wrote on balancing nature and nurture in psychology.
They nurture startup ideas through incubators.
He said nurture in infancy is crucial for attachment.
Therapists nurture patients' resilience with support.
She believes nurture influences language acquisition heavily.
Parents nurture good habits with consistent routines.
He emphasized nurture over genetics in his speech.
Teachers nurture curiosity by posing open-ended questions.
She researches nurture effects in twin studies.
Coaches nurture team cohesion through regular drills.
He attributes his work ethic to nurture at home.
She found that nurture in early years predicts social skills.
He mentors interns to nurture their professional growth.
Hospitals nurture healthy newborns in intensive care.
She studied how nurture affects adolescent behavior.
Families nurture traditions through shared experiences.
He argued that nurture is vital in language fluency.
Sponsors nurture research projects with funding.
She noted nurture impacts career interests early on.
Leaders nurture company culture by example.
He credits his mentors for nurture of his entrepreneurial spirit.
Schools nurture talents through specialized programs.
She found nurture influences moral development significantly.
Coaches nurture discipline with consistent feedback.
He studies nurture factors in cognitive development.
Parents nurture independence by granting responsibilities.
She explored nurture effects in cross-cultural settings.
Mentors nurture creativity in art workshops.
He believed nurture determines coping mechanisms in adults.
Teachers nurture confidence with positive reinforcement.
That's how nurture captures care and environmental influence.
On and on is an adverbial phrase.
It means continuing for a long time, often tediously or without end.
He talked on and on about his weekend plans.
The lecture went on and on past the scheduled time.
She complained that meetings drag on and on.
He describes gossip that goes on and on without substance.
They argued that bureaucracy can go on and on.
She listened to him ramble on and on about sports.
The engine's humming continued on and on through the night.
He noted that the story repeats itself on and on.
She sighed as the speech droned on and on.
He wrote a novel that goes on and on about time travel.
The rain fell on and on for days.
She complained that commercials run on and on too long.
They watched the clock as the discussion went on and on.
He said her critiques go on and on without end.
The wind howled on and on throughout the storm.
She notes that delays can drag on and on.
The song's chorus repeats on and on in her playlist.
He finds his neighbor's stories go on and on.
The debate stretched on and on into the evening.
She said apologies can ring on and on if insincere.
The highway seemed to stretch on and on into the horizon.
He claims certain TV series go on and on without plot.
The questions continued on and on in the Q&A.
She observed that trends cycle on and on over decades.
The melody lingered on and on in his mind.
He says complaints go on and on if not addressed.
The lecture's points repeated on and on like an echo.
She found that rumors spread on and on.
The road curves run on and on through the desert.
He joked that his grandparents talked on and on at dinner.
The line for the ride went on and on around the park.
She found the echo in the canyon went on and on.
The saga seems to continue on and on each season.
He complains his partner snores on and on.
The project's scope grew on and on beyond expectations.
She calls repetitive tasks that go on and on mundane.
The alarm beeped on and on until he turned it off.
He notes that bureaucracy emails go on and on.
The tradition continued on and on for generations.
That's how on and on describes endless continuity.
That concludes our deep dive into these 5 essential English expressions and words.
We hope you feel confident using role model, nag, nature, nurture, and on in your conversations.
Thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing more vocabulary insights next time.
Goodbye and keep practicing every day.